What's up, YouTube? This is Ty with Invisible Chess. I just want to share my opinions about the Philando Castile situation. I was going to do a video sooner, but I needed to take time and reflect, especially after all those police officers were killed down in Dallas. I needed to reflect on what I'd say about all this and give people some time to mellow out from a lot of the tension. The Facebook video that shows Castile's final moments was really ghastly. I mean, I've seen more graphic stuff, but the fact that he died in front of his 4-year-old daughter and her mother really tugged on the heartstrings. That little girl wasn't an infant, so she's going to have vivid memories of this day, or that day, I'm sorry, and that's what she's going to associate with law enforcement probably from now on. With being the people who killed her dad. The fact that she's female also is a factor, because we know in some of our communities there are just a lot of single moms, and she may be left alone to take care of her sons one day, and she may fear for them a little extra, being that they're black males. So it's more than just her psychological conditioning now, it's her whole bloodline that may end up distressing police. There are a lot of people running out seeking retaliation. And while I'm not surprised, I do know that this isn't the way. I'm not saying we should be punks and sit back and let injustice happen. I'm saying that we can't lose perspective on our goals. Our predecessors went through the worst of it, and they had to retrofit a culture that was built on supremacy theory by denigrating them. They had to retrofit that culture for equal rights under the law, which was a nearly impossible task. But generation by generation, they passed the baton of equality and fought to increase those margins until you have what you see today. And the fight is still going on. Somewhere along the line, we got it in our heads that some of us, I never got it in my head, but some of us got it in our head that we had it easy because Barack Obama was president or for whatever reasons. But, you know, we're still in the fight when we lost perspective and stopped progressing. You may be saying to yourself that nothing has changed, but a lot has. Our battles today are mostly fought against institutional bias and racism, as opposed to a lot of the really barbaric atrocities like routine lynchings. A lot of the times we don't think about it, but we as African Americans are better off than a lot of our brethren in other parts of the world. We are the premier group of black people in the West. And I'm not saying that to be cocky, but because we have our faults. But when people internationally turn on their televisions and they see black people being featured, they're most likely going to see us or some other diaspora members, you know, albeit we might not always be seen in a positive light, but we are the only group of black people to establish a market for black culture inside a mostly Eurocentric nation. That puts us in a position where we're patched into an economy that for now is stable enough for us to really build ourselves up beyond what many other blacks can only dream of. And we got to circumvent the system and take advantage of that while we can, while the dollar is still worth something. It's not about how many of those dollars you get, it's about what you invested in. Because trust me, the time is coming where poverty is going to hit America like it's never hit before. And I don't know about you, but I would like some sustainability. I want to be in a good position when those times come. Philando Castile had the right mindset in life. He worked hard. He got the good job working for St. Paul's School District in Minnesota as a nutrition service assistant. He even worked his way to supervisor. No criminal record. He and his girlfriend were both taking care of their kid, and then he was killed. And in my opinion, race had a lot to do with it. I don't think that officer got up that day and said he was going to kill somebody, but the bias that is out there, that is so heavy upon us, generates fear. And then you have politicians and other people out there drumming up justification for why it's okay to shoot us first and ask questions later. Castile had been pulled over a total of 52 times in that area since he was there for small vehicular infractions, where well over half of those were thrown out because they had little or no merit. That in itself speaks to profiling, because that area is well over 70% white and very few blacks live there. The percentage is somewhere in the single digits. I think it's less than 8%. I have to check on that, but I think it is. Now, I grew up in an agriculture town with mostly black folks. My family were farmers, masons, etc. What I loved about where I grew up was that there was a lot of land to do with what you pleased. You could survey a piece, buy property cheap, tap and dig your own well, and every couple of, every once in a while, every couple of years or whatever, there might be some maintenance required on that well. We all had huge backyards to where we could grow crop far enough from the house in an open field, and we sell those things. We go out and fish and throw fish fries and crab feasts either at our homes or at the local campground and charge per plate. We'd have DJs come out and we'd dance up a storm, and our women would bring trunkfuls of merchandise they'd either made or things around the house they wanted to get rid of, and they'd sell it. And people were always doing like seasonal projects for each other, seasonal paid projects. We'd build each other brick grills and barbecue pits or open pits people could sit around and have drinks, or outdoor car garages and decks. The point I'm trying to make is we own the land and the resources, and we could use it however we saw fit to enrich our lives or turn a dollar. I personally had 5 guns in my house growing up, and that was considered light where I come from. It wasn't because I was a gun nut. It was because we had different types of guns for different types of game we were hunting. And then, of course, 2 of the guns were pistols for defense, but our sheriff didn't care. Everybody had guns, and we only had 1 sheriff and less than a handful of deputies. And they didn't all work on the same days either. In my whole life, at least in my generation, I only knew of 2 shooting incidents. One where it was this older guy who accidentally shot himself in the foot at his house. He probably was drunk. And another where this old timer had got tired of living and shot himself. He committed suicide. The only other time the sheriff drove around our way was if they were escorting an ambulance to the hospital, or if the sheriff was trying to buy deer meat, from somebody. When I finally did move from there and into a suburb outside a major city, I'd see some of the city kids take the bus out to our area because we had swimming pools and stuff. And when I went into their area, all I saw was basketball court with a tall fence around it, and educators called that a playground. To me, it looked like a prison. It just was missing barbed wire around the top. Now, after some years, I ended up living in some of these cities in order to take jobs, and I saw what people go through, and I see why things are so bad. The state makes so much money off of lower income areas purposely. What they do is farm your statistics. They make more money off your disparity than anything else. Inside of those larger and lower income areas, the police agencies, contrary to belief, aren't mainly funded by your direct tax dollars. I mean, it's tax dollars, but it doesn't come directly out of many of the people's pockets that live there. Only a small fraction is added to their coffers from citations and fines and sales tax. A huge percent comes from government grant programs, some of which are dispersed to police agencies based on the size of the population and the crime rates, as well as the amount of drugs they confiscate annually by the ounce in other programs for nutrition and housing. They don't invest, they hardly invest in anything that's enriching, like job training or building a small plant that the city can contract out to manufacture small things for the country, to where they can employ people or even money into self-sufficiency and energy reduction programs like farming and solar. They don't invest in that because that would get in the way of them being able to siphon more tax dollars, and they do that with your data. The worst part about it all is the data extrapolated from the inner cities is used as a general characterization of all African Americans, and it creates this bias. All the national institutions, including housing, in banking, people literally believe that when you move in the area, property value goes down. And technically, if people aren't willing to buy because of some idea they have about you, then it does go down. But there is no actual direct effect you have on property just by being black. There is only the notion that the market has about you that encourages people to buy or not buy. That's why financial institutions, whether you know it or not, make you pay higher interest rates, or even if your credit score is decent, or they make you put down a higher down payment for stuff, or when you go in to run your credit for something, sometimes people turn you away. There is bias all over the place, and it's being institutionally spread, and on some level, Some of our people help contribute to those notions, but nonetheless, killing somebody based on a notion is wrong. And we have to work to regain control of some of the places where we live, where we're the chief population, because everybody in this country is claiming space. Okay? This nation is on the brink of splitting apart ideals-wise. And we need to prepare to take care of our own. I mean, I don't know what tomorrow will hold, and I can't say for sure how bad it will be, but there are definitely forces out there that want the split. Lastly, we got to do something about all the crime in some of our communities. Philando Castile seems like a good guy. I mean, he escaped a life that many of our people generally fall prey to, but died to bias. And you see our brethren all over the world escaping their homes to other places to do the same thing he did, and they're met with hostility and racism. Sometimes we as a group forget there is no place like home because we lose confidence and trust in each other, and we stop trying and asking why it is we're fractured. We've become more emboldened to fight injustice, done to us by other people, and that's something we should keep doing, but we can't afford to get distracted from at least building a more self-sufficient community where we are, because social science tells us that those who aren't prepared to take care of themselves, they can sometimes exploit those around them and take advantage of goodwill. A time is coming soon where we're going to be tested like we've never been, where we'll be left to lean on each other as Black and African American people here in the States. And you really don't want to be sectioned off in a city where the only people with arms are the criminals.